Another X-Men movie, another mutated pile of Easter eggs. We're naming them all on today's Nerdist News. X-Men Apocalypse, the 8th X-Men movie to come out in the past 16 years, or the 9th, I guess, if Deadpool counts, which I think it does. I'm pretty sure. Finally came out this weekend, and say what you will about this return of the Children of the Atom, it is packed to the gills with fun Easter eggs, some of which almost definitely point to the hopefully brighter future of the cinematic franchise. First up, yes, that was indeed the Blob, who we saw unconscious on the ground during the Angel Cage fight at the start of the movie. Fred Dukes, the big, bulletproof bad boy himself, previously appeared in X-Men Origins Wolverine, and although these movies have pretty much the most confusing continuity ever, we think that flick is no longer canon, I guess, maybe? So you can go ahead and assume this is an all-new Blob who's super into cage fighting and has a weird scarred-up head. Also, check out that classic costume. Nice touch. Moving on, we got the first of many callbacks to the early Singer X films when Professor X once again read his students his favorite book, The Once and Future King, just like he did in X2 and the Extinction Agenda storyline in the comics. That dude loves him some Once and Future King. Another solid callback, a dialogue exchange between Magneto and Professor X that also occurred in the first X-Men movie. Magneto asks,
"Doesn't it ever wake you up in the middle of the night? The feeling that someday they'll come for you and your children?"
To which Xavier responds quite badassly,
"I feel a great swirl of pity for the poor soul that comes to my school looking for trouble."
And yet, someone always does. And hey, more throwbacks. Beast tells Mystique that he is building the Blackbird, the X-Men's iconic superplane, under the basketball court of the X-Mansion, which is something you may or may not remember Stryker poking fun at way back in X2. So hey, there's some continuity that matches. And Apocalypse's final and best throwback reference has to be the jab Bryan Singer took at X-Men Last Stand when we see the X-Teens exit a screening of Return of the Jedi and complain that the third movie always sucks. Though, Bri, I've gotta say, after the critical beating Apocalypse took this weekend, you might have accidentally taken a dig at yourself. But moving on from old movie references, let's talk about the Easter eggs that might be hinting at the future of the X-Men flicks. First, the obvious. Yes, we saw Jean Grey tapping into her Dark Phoenix powers, which is no surprise since Singer was clearly jonesing to bring on the Phoenix after X2. And with the director talking about taking the next movie into space, well, yeah, I think we can count on the Dark Phoenix saga the next time the X-Men unite on screen. And then there was Moira McTaggart's casual reference to her son. It seemed like she was just pouring some cold water on Professor X's come-ons, but in the comics, her kid is an all-powerful reality-warping mutant named Proteus. Could he be an upcoming villain? And speaking of Havoc, we saw Cyclops' bro get exploded, but we don't see a body, or even pieces of one. So is he really dead? Well, in the comics, Havoc has an arc where he's caught in an explosion and sent to an alternate dimension, where he leads a bizarro version of the X-Men called the Six in a comic called Mutant X. With Fox building out their cinematic universe as much as possible with new teams like the New Mutants and X-Force, we've got to wonder if Mutant X might join their ranks. And what about Bryan Singer's love of Trek? With a cameo in Star Trek Nemesis, having Captain Picard as the first Professor X, George Takei narrating a viral video for the new X flick, and Hank watching TOS in Days of Futures Past, it's safe to say Singer loves his Trek. And X-Men Apocalypse was no exception as we see the big bad blue guy download the world's knowledge while the season 2 episode of the original series, Who Mourns for Adonais, plays in the background, foreshadowing In Sabanur's eventual fall as a god, similar to that episode's storyline. And finally, the big one, that post-credit sequence which featured an agent for Essex Corp collecting a vial of Wolverine blood. This sets up a whole bunch of stuff that could pay off in the next X-Men movie, or more likely, Wolverine 3. See, Essex Corp is a reference to Nathaniel Essex, aka Mr. Sinister, a supervillain granted immortality by Apocalypse who has a tendency to mess with mutant genetics and cloning. Could he be using Wolverine's DNA to create X-23, the female Wolverine clone who becomes his surrogate daughter, whom we've heard may appear in the Knuckleheads threequel? Or will Mr. Sinister show up in the Dark Phoenix movie using his experiments to bring out the worst in Jean Grey? Or better yet, Could he be the big bad in the allegedly still upcoming Gambit movie? Not only do the characters have a lengthy history in the comics, but X-Men producer Simon Kinberg himself recently referenced Gambit in his list of movies that the Apocalypse end tag might have an effect on. Intriguing stuff. But what do you guys think? Did you catch any Easter eggs that I missed? Did you dig Wolverine's pretty damn accurate Weapon X suit? What do you think that end credits tag will lead into? Let's discuss. And you know what's cool? Free merch. We've got a brand new hat in the Nerdist store. It's the best of all the possible shades of gray. It's got the world famous Nerdist logo. This stitching is out of this world. I mean, it is a fine, fine product. Do you want it? I will give it to you for free. Just click the link to the tweet in the post below. Tell me how much you like this Easter egg episode and we'll pick someone at random to send it to. And if you want to pay for a hat, head on over to the Nerdist store and you can find that over at nerdist.com.